Hey everybody, Matthew Perry here, and I want to welcome you all to episode 8 of our All Around Spurgeon podcast. Before we go any further, I just want to let you know that I'm pastor of Arapahoe Road Baptist Church in Centennial, Colorado. I'm also have the privilege of being an affiliate faculty at Colorado Christian University. I love the work that they are doing there, and it's a privilege to be a part of what they're doing there. And I was really grateful because in my latest book, All Around Spurgeon, you'll see on the back that Earl Wagner, who is the Dean and Professor of Theological Studies and at the School of Biblical and Theological Studies and College of Adult and Graduate Studies at Colorado Christian University. That is either going to have to be really small print on your business card or a really big business card. But Earl is a dear brother, and I'm really grateful for him and his endorsement of this book. Um, last episode, we were looking at some things from this book that I did last year, Destroying Everything Bad in the Land. I know this seems like a self-promotion deal, but these are some things that have been coming back around for me because when I was doing my dissertation, which this is what this is, it was 2018, 19, and 20. And so it was finished up in 2020, and that was an election cycle. And so here we are again at another election cycle. And the third chapter of this is just a brief treatment, was a brief treatment of Christian nationalism as part of Great Britain. And another thing that when it comes to a gospel-centered ethic, it was dealing with religious liberty. And that's another thing that's been coming along for us. And that's part of our country as um, Americans was the idea of being able to worship as you saw fit. And the reason was we did that was we did not, or they did not feel that. We did not feel that as Americans when we were part of Great Britain. In fact, if you were away from the state church, away from the Anglican Church, then you would be called a dissenter. And that is the ecclesiastical tribe that Spurgeon came from. And so one of the chapters that we were dealing with in this book is dealing with Spurgeon's ethic on religious liberty. So at the beginning, I came across this quote from Tertullian, 155 to 220 AD, in his apology that he wrote around 197 AD. So it was a long time ago. Listen to what he says. Let one man worship God, another Jupiter. Let one lift suppliant hands to the heavens, another to the altar of Fides. Let one, if you choose to take this view of it, count in prayer the clouds and another the ceiling panels. Let one concentrate his own life to his God and another to that of a goat. Foresee that you do not give a further ground for the charge of irreligion by taking away religious liberty and forbidding free choice of deity, so that I may no longer worship according to my inclination, but am compelled to worship against it. Not even a human being would care to have unwilling homage rendered him. So this is the opposite of the way many of us may think about this. It's the opposite because it's like if you are saying you can only worship one way in a civic manner, you're taking away religious liberty from somebody else. And if they get into power, then they're going to do the same thing to you. So the best thing to do is just allow that to happen and not compel from the government, not compel them to tell you how you should worship. And so this didn't fly. This didn't fly in England during Spurgeon's time, and especially in the centuries leading up to it. Because when King Henry VIII decided that he was going to be over the things of England, when he decided that he was going to be over that, the reason that he broke away from the Catholic Church was because he wanted to divorce and marry another that would be able to sire some sons. and to be able to keep the lineage going. But then it got to be where there wasn't freedom of religion there. It wasn't like you could worship however you want. You had to worship in the manner of the state. Spurgeon did not have anything to do with that at all. He was absolutely not having it. And so his dissenter roots went all the way back, mainly Congregationalist. But they were still outside of the Anglican Church. You could only preach if you got permission from the Anglican Church. So the dissenters, they would find ways to preach, and it would go all the way back, all the way back. But the one that Spurgeon loved the most was John Bunyan, aside from Job Spurgeon and some of his father and grandfather and such. It was Bunyan, who was put in a Bedford, England jail for 12 years, the author of Pilgrim's Progress, because he dared to preach outside of the authority of the Anglican Church. He's thrown in jail. And so these roots that Spurgeon had, and Spurgeon ended up becoming a Baptist soon after his conversion. And there's a well-known account there that after Spurgeon's baptism was scheduled, his mother was really sad because his mother wanted him to continue in the Congregationalist way. But he sought out believers' baptism as opposed to the paedo baptism, as opposed to infant baptism. And she was praying for him not to become a Baptist. And his response was, "Ah, mother, the Lord has answered your prayer with his usual bounty and given you exceedingly abundantly above what you asked or thought." But the Baptists were also in that line of dissenters as well. And Greg Wills, Baptist historian, he noted that Baptists championed the rights of conscience and private judgment in the interpretation of Scripture, but people had these rights, they believed, as citizens of the state, not as members of the churches. The state had no right to inflict civil or criminal penalties for religious opinions, but churches had every right to inflict spiritual penalties for erroneous beliefs. The authority to censure members for wrong doctrine was a matter of both freedom and unity. One of the things that came about was a way where the Anglican Church may have felt like that it was actually conceding and being tolerant of the dissenters. So one of the things that happened in 1689 was the Act of Toleration. This Act of Toleration, dissenters found that they were able to exercise a little bit more of their religious liberty, but there were some caveats and conditions. First of all, each dissenting church had to register with the government. Otherwise, it was illegal. Second, the government required each dissenting church to proclaim certain oaths of allegiance to the monarchy who served as head of the church. But wait, there's more. Failure to do so would entail dire consequences. Well, here's another one. Nonconformists were still denied political office or the ability to teach at universities. Lastly, certain groups could not take a seat on parliament. So there's a toleration, but that toleration was very, very small. So Spurgeon, who pounced on that word of toleration, boy, he wasn't having that at all either. And so this quote I found in Wayland's biography of Spurgeon. Listen to what he says. "We are told that we enjoy toleration. The very word is an insult. What would the members of the dominant sect think if we talked of tolerating them? We shall never be satisfied until all religious communities stand upon equal footing before the law. Caesar has no right to demand of us that we shall support the religion or the superstition which he chooses to select. An established church is a spiritual tyranny," the established church being the Anglican Church. He continues, We wear no chains upon our wrists, but on our spirits our oppressors have thrust fetters which gall us worse than bands of steel. We are compelled as part of the nation to support a church whose business is to pull down that which with prayers and tears we live to build up and would even die to maintain. There were times when Spurgeon was diplomatic, and then there were times like this. There was just not this understanding for him of religious liberty with 1,000 caveats. Well, 4. But those 4 caveats really weren't allowing anyone to be able to participate in various pieces of society unless they gave some sort of oath of allegiance to an earthly king, right? Now, Spurgeon, as we talked about in the last episode, was very much a patriot. He would say, God save the queen. But he's thinking along civic lines. When he's thinking along church lines and ecclesiastical lines, this was not something that he himself would tolerate. So when we're talking about religious liberty, it is not anti-Christian for us to say in a civic manner, everyone should have an opportunity to worship as they please. There should not be that compulsion. So you're seeing now the connective tissue between the imperialism piece and the religious liberty piece is that does imperialism, allow you to be able to worship as you choose, or with this colonial mindset of where they would go all over the world, where they would say that the sun doesn't set on the British Empire, that everyone had to conform. We did a little bit of that on our own with the Indians in the West and such. But we've got to really be careful that when we're talking about religious liberty, it's not just religious liberty for Christians. It's religious liberty for all. And then allow everyone as equal citizens who have their own beliefs and their own ideas about how to go about life here and in the hereafter, to let them to be able to talk on their own, man to man, as it says. The man talks to a man, the person talks to a person, without this compulsion from a higher authority that has the ability to levy serious civic consequences on you. So I was really grateful to be able to look at this. It was religious, all religions he was talking about on equal footing. So I'm hoping that, again, as the election comes a little closer and we start wrestling through some of these ideas, then most certainly we'll be addressing them again. We don't want to confine it all to just a 10 or 15-minute podcast. So what do you think? Let me know. Religious liberty, is it just for Christians, or is it really for everybody? Is that a Christian concept? Or is it something that we are owed? Or does the Bible say more about persecution than it does religious liberty? Let me know your thoughts. But again, my name is Matthew Perry, and I'm so glad you're able to join us on this All Around Spurgeon podcast. Let me know of any way that we can pray for you, if there's a particular topic that we could talk about. And in this Spurgeon environment, we'd love to be able to just press on further. All right. Thanks a lot for joining us. Be good to see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.